Good morning, everyone. Hello, NUEL. How are you guys feeling about Durham now? That's not quite as big a holiday as yesterday. I think it's because you had a good time last night enjoying this beautiful downtown area, and thank you all for such a great day yesterday. We are going to get started this morning. You're in for a real treat. I am just very excited to have this wonderful group of people to join us this morning for our urban panel, our partnership panel. And I'm going to just briefly, what I'm going to do is have them as the very first thing introduce themselves. And tell us a little bit about their background and current role with Extension. And we'll just start at the far end. David, are you okay with that? You ready to go? Yeah, there you go. I know Dwayne will give it up for you. All right, let's get started.
Well, good morning, everybody. My name is David Wright, and I'm from Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service. As I sort of looked last night and want to make sure I said the correct number of years I have been in Extension, it reminds us that we have been in for a period of time, but has had a good time being part of the organization. This is my 27th year in Extension. I started as a county extension agent for Ag and Natural Resources. I've been a 4-H youth development agent for about 11 years. I was a 4-H specialist for about 7. And then have been in an administrative role for the last 7 years as well. Currently as the County Extension Director in Houston, Harris County. In addition to that, 3 years ago, we did a quick repositioning, and I serve also as the Urban Program Director, which encompasses our 7 largest counties in the state. So great opportunity to work with a strong team across the state of Texas, and look forward to sharing some of our aspects of the work that we do at Texas A&M.
Good morning. My name is Dwayne Holder, and I do not work in Extension, but I do work with Extension. I am a Deputy County Manager in Wake County, which is the capital county of North Carolina, right next door to Durham. I work with Catherine, and on behalf of the county manager, I'm the liaison to Extension. I've been in county government for 25 years, and it's all been in North Carolina. This is the third county in North Carolina that I've worked in. Prior, I worked with Lisa Childers, who's here also, down in Cumberland County. But I work very closely with Catherine, and not only do I work closely with Catherine, but we'll talk later on about how closely Catherine works with all of the other department directors that are within my portfolio. So glad to be with you today.
Brought my own from home. My name is Stuart Vermack. I am with Virginia Cooperative Extension. I'm the department director / unit coordinator / extension agent up in Loudoun County, Virginia. In all the way northern Virginia, we border Maryland, right next to DC, and border West Virginia as well. I've been with Extension for coming up on 8 years, and I've been in my role as department director for 4 of those years. We'll get into a little bit more about our counties and different things in a bit.
My name is Ashley Troth. I am the horticulture agent here in Durham County. I've been with Extension in Durham County since 2018. I've been in my current role since 2020. Prior to that, Durham had 1 ag agent, so I was all things livestock to landscapes. In their infinite wisdom, they decided to give the farm stuff to someone else. And so as part of my program now, I oversee about 150 Extension Master Gardeners. I help with the Master Naturalist program. And I'm really enjoying it.
That's awesome. Thank you. Let's give them all a warm welcome. Okay, to our panelists this morning, our visitors are here, and we've been not only learning about innovative programs, that we spent some time on yesterday, but also understanding the significance of partnerships and the impact that they result in our urban communities. What one or two factors do you think are critical to successful partnerships? Who wants to start?
So partnership, of course, as part of NUEL is one of those 4 Ps that we really focus on. We think, and we know the importance and the significance of it. For me, our team knows that building a relationship with them, to me, is one of the key factors. And one of the things that I think that we overlook often, and I share this with many people, is that there are multiple protocols, there's a lot of guidelines that we have that help us and direct the work that we do. But if we don't build that relationship with those partners and even those who are sitting next to us, I don't think that is one of the things that does not allow us to be successful in the work that we do. So we work extremely hard to build those relationships with them, primarily by sharing the work that we do, engaging them in the programs that we offer within our respective counties. We ensure that based on the work that we are doing, that it aligns with any of the goals and deliverables that our partners share as well. And I think that being consistent and very specific about the work that we do and how we do it, I think is important so that our partners know who we are. It's always difficult, and I use those of you who have children, based on what they're asking us. If they do it on a more consistent basis and we understand exactly what their needs are, it's a little easier for us to say yes. And so I feel the same way about working with our partners. We need to ensure that they know what we're doing, how we do it, and more importantly, exactly how it's going to benefit them as well as us. And I think if we keep that in mind as we continue to work with them, that's one of the things that we have found that's been real successful for us to work with our partners throughout the communities.
I think, yeah, and to build on that point, I think a huge part of our work has been patience as well. There's so many people that we want to work with, so many people where we can see real potential, but some of those relationships are years in building out. And just recognizing that that's part of the process. It's not a glitch. It's not anyone, dragging their feet. But a lot of communities that we want to work with either don't know what our value is, or maybe they've been disappointed in the past. And just being willing to have a conversation, and also being flexible in what you're hearing, right? And being willing to kind of ask multiple times, what's your real underlying goal? So you maybe are asking for a specific thing like this, but your real underlying request is over here, and how do we get to what you really need? And those can be really long-term conversations. There are some partnerships that we're just starting to see come to fruition now, and it's been years, but we're getting there, and just being willing to come back to it.
Yeah, when I think about partnerships, the words that come to mind are purpose and intentionality. So being really purposeful about what you're trying to get out of the partnership, and what each partner's responsibilities are in the partnership. And then also intentionality, and this also speaks to what Ashley is saying about patience. Being intentional, sometimes you have to do it over and over, right? You have to build that muscle. Like for us, the muscle is being built that whenever we're doing anything, we're asking, does extension fit? Is there a role that extension can play? And sometimes that's yes, and sometimes that's no, but just being intentional about checking, right? Because it's a resource, a very valuable resource for us. So.
Yeah, it feels like we all got up early this morning and coordinated this, but because we're getting on a good roll, because I would just end with the word of trust. I think that is so integral to everything that, building on what you all have said. It's the foundation that it takes a long time to build these relationships, and they only move forward with trust. When we do what we say we're going to do in a relationship, in a partnership, sounds like we're on Sunday morning here. We're starting to preach now, but when we build those relationships based on trust, that our partners can trust us, that doesn't happen overnight, right? Trust doesn't just all of a sudden say, hey, I want you to trust me, let's go ahead and do this big project. it takes time, and what we've seen is that there is a lot of time and investment required to build sustainable trust. And so it is turning up even when you don't have anything to say, that they know you're in the room, that you care about that with the community, with the county government. It's building those relationships and making sure that, the work that we're doing can be trusted. And, and I think that's one of the unique things that Extension brings to a county government and a community is that the programming we do is, is scientific based, it is research based, so there is inherent trust there. And so for us to continue that by building that trust with our partnerships, I think is really critical.
Okay, thank you all. For those of you that don't know my communication style yet, I am really struggling with not being able to see my people's faces. So I might just be standing over here at some point. But I really, really appreciate all of those responses. Very thoughtful. So when you think about urban issues where Extension is making a difference, what programs, services, or efforts stand out to you? And I'm asking intentionally about urban issues because oftentimes, in Extension, we frame our thinking around what program can I deliver. But in our urban communities, we are often coming to the table around a particular issue or local need that we're trying to impact, and then bringing multidisciplinary ideas and expertise to those matters. So talk a little bit about that, each of you, if you could.
I'll speak
Start, okay,
briefly.
Dwayne.
One of the initiatives that we entered into in Wake County was a pilot program that was called Social and Economic Vitality. And so social and economic vitality was this idea that we really wanted to be intentional around upward mobility of some of our most vulnerable residents. And at the time, there was discussion about where that would fit. Would it fit in our health and human services programs? And we ultimately decided for it to reside in cooperative extension, I think in part because of the connections that cooperative extension had with the community, particularly with some of the grassroots members of our community. And just this idea, you talked about the evidence-based programming, and this idea that they were also seen as somewhat of a independent yet very connected entity that was a trusted member of the community. And so that pilot lasted a few years, and there was so much gained as a result. And it was about empowerment, it was about skill building, it was about financial literacy. I mean, just any number of things to help individuals go from, surviving to thriving. And because of that pilot, we now are integrating that programming into our larger countywide. That SEV program started in one area of the county, some of the areas that included qualified census tracts, and now it's being spread throughout the entire county, targeting individuals that are most at risk, but again, trying to connect them with all of the social determinants of health. And so I'm really proud about the SEV, Social and Economic Vitality, that we tagged Cooperative Extension to pilot on behalf of the county.
Thank you. David?
Yes, so just to follow up with that in an area of health, one of the things that we have found within our 7 respective counties within our unit is that the majority of our units have now really transitioned under public health. And for those of you who have been in extension for a period of time, it's not that we haven't really focused or programmed in that area, but when you are moved under that umbrella, we really had to refocus and think about how that supports the work that other departments or complement the work that other departments do that we're aligned with in public health. And many of you know that we do a lot of programs related to, well, let me back up. One of the things we really don't talk a lot about anymore is post-COVID. But I will say that during that time, that gave us a really unique opportunity, and we'll talk about probably relevance later in another question, but it really allowed us an opportunity to show how relevant extension is across the country, and more specifically in the areas that we work. A lot of people want to be outdoors more often than they were before. We were already doing those types of programs when we were related to youth. But in addition to that, our health and nutrition component is certainly one of the high-profile areas. Many of you know about Master Gardener's Master Wellness Program, so it allowed us an opportunity to be in a position to show that we really were engaged in supporting the work that that department does in making sure that people have benefits and the opportunities to be healthy. I would say that the other connection that we made is we try to encompass all four of our program areas. So agriculture, of course, is another one of those areas. But at the same time, our goal and our thought is how do we connect agriculture to health? And by including all components of the work that we do, we had a much better opportunity to share the work that we do with individuals in the communities through our wellness programs, those who want to be outdoors under our agriculture/horticulture unit, Master Gardening, whether it's container gardening or whether it was raised beds, whatever that may have looked like, that was our way to provide support, one, two, guidance on what that looks like, and also have subject matter specialists to support our work in agriculture and health and all that encompasses under that area. So we found that it really allowed us to be and to show, and I was asked that question by our county administrator shortly after COVID, do we feel like that we were still, what changes did Extension make to ensure that we were relevant moving forward? And I used that example and made that connection of how that looks, and that was very, very beneficial to us, and especially in our 7 counties, which encompasses about half the people in the state of Texas, about 15 million. That gives us a great way to show that it's bigger than just some of the things that people know us for, and sometimes they don't know us at all. But by putting us in a role in a department that allows us to collaborate with our respective partners in those communities really gave us a way to show our relevance across the state of Texas.
Thank you. Ashley?
Yeah, so one of the partnerships we've had a lot of success with is actually around urban tree planting. And so this is a program where there was a group of actually Duke master's students who did a study. And when they looked at the urban tree cover map for the city of Durham, it was a direct one-to-one overlay with historic redlining maps. And this is something that's actually, you'll see across cities all across the United States, is that tree cover is directly correlated often with historic redlining, with socioeconomic status, with all of these other kind of things. That means that tree cover actually becomes really a social issue as well. Tree cover, we know, increased tree cover decreases temperatures. There's a whole bunch of interesting research showing it leads to better health outcomes. You'll actually have lower involvement with like the justice system when you have higher tree cover. It's crazy. Like relationships that should not exist, we find over and over and over again. More trees are better. And so the city of Durham committed to planting 1,500 trees a year for 10 years in city right-of-ways, city-owned property. And that was great, but someone actually has to plant those trees then, right? Like that becomes the next step. And so we were able to partner with the city of Durham and a Durham nonprofit, Keep Durham Beautiful, to really be the training force for those volunteers. It's one thing to turn out a bunch of volunteers with a whole bunch of trees and say, have at it, but half of those trees are gonna end up in the ground upside down, right? You need to have lead tree planting volunteers, and that was where we stepped in to train tree keepers. That was a new partnership for us. We actually had not been as involved with the city of Durham or Keep Durham Beautiful, especially when it came to kind of environmental concerns prior to that. But we knew that our specialty really lies in training, in education, and if I can train 150 master gardeners, I certainly can help train tree keepers. And we lead that training every year now, and we basically turn over highly trained, highly skilled volunteers who have training not only in tree biology, early tree pruning, but actually also volunteer leadership so that they are prepared to go out and lead those groups. And that's just been really positive, and it's a place where now we're having other conversations about other projects, and it's all kind of building off that And it's really addressing what we know is kind of a uniquely urban concern when it comes to tree cover.
Yeah, I come from a bit of a weird situation relative to this question because geographically half of my county is very rural and the eastern part is very urban. So we have 440,000 people in Loudoun and 100,000 are in the rural west, and 340,000 or so are in the urban east. And so I don't know if it's a benefit, but we don't just get to go, we have to do urban extension or we just do rural extension. We have to kind of do both. And the way that we look at that is how do we bridge that gap between the increasing population in eastern Loudoun that is have never seen a farm before, and then the not that many years ago, but it all looked like Western Loudoun, right? So the development has happened very quickly in the east. And so from extension, we've looked, very similar to what Dwayne's saying here about the programming that looks at health and human services. And so, our department in the county government previously was with departments like building and development and economic development, and we were transferred into the health and human services portfolio. And I think that was a great thing. And with that, the positions that we have gone to ask for are nutrition education, financial literacy education, but looking at that in terms of how do we not just go, okay, this side of the team is for urban programming and this side of the team is for rural programming, but how do we collaboratively try and tackle the big issue of bridging the divide between the residents in the east with the west, and how do we, because everyone needs nutrition education. Oh, I was expecting a big, like my FCS table here, a big roar or something. And everyone needs financial literacy education. Right? It doesn't matter if you're in an urban or a rural area. Everyone needs extension programming. And so, but how do we communicate that and market that in a way that is successful? The question that I ask back to the question is, well, it depends on how we define success, right? What does success look like in terms of urban programming? Is it successful to our board of supervisors and to our county administration? And I think that's something that we need to think about in terms of if we just look at urban programming versus rural programming.
Yeah, thank you. Beekeepers and tree keepers. I'm liking it. Okay, now each of you do occupy unique roles. You all have heard a little bit about that, and I know you have many of your own stories about working with or in extension. But as you reflect on that evolution of your work in or with extension and your journey, what challenges have you seen us overcome, and what opportunities do you see for the future with extension supporting our urban areas?
I'll start.
I always get nervous about him on this one.
I hope you don't. I hope you don't mind
Jump
me
in.
sharing, but it's interesting because so Wake County is a very fast-growing county. It's urban, but it's also very fast-growing. And when I came to Wake County, I was dealing with an extension director who was suffering from PTSD. And when I say PTSD, what I mean is I came to understand that cooperative extension in our county had been, a few years prior, had been kind of like on the chopping block, if you will. In other words, there was leadership in place that said, well, look, we're an urban county and we're becoming more urban. We don't need extension. There are fewer farms. There's less open space. We really don't need extension. And I came on board right after there was new leadership in place, and I would like to think that I helped. The momentum was already starting, but I helped because of prior experience and understanding of extension. One of the reasons I think that existed was because there was just a lack of understanding of what extension was and how valuable it could be to the overall county government. And so Catherine really, all she needed was an advocate. She had everything she needed to elevate the profile of extension, but she needed an advocate, and I think that was one of the things, overcoming kind of this idea. And interestingly enough, COVID really helped tremendously to change the profile of extension, because in our county, extension really became the champion for food security. And that was so valuable during the pandemic. And so we had that to build upon, and then some of the pilot programs. And so the corner has really been turned, I think, as it relates to the profile of extension. And now it's integrated into some of the initiatives in our strategic plan. And again, just the grouping of the extension service with the portfolio that I have has helped to see extension as an equal member of our county's leadership team.
Thank you. David?
Yes. So I would say that that's a good segue for me, because when I looked at that question, I thought about what have we done, or what have we planned to do, or what could we build on based on the issue of urban programming or urban extension in the future. We spend a lot of time talking about that, and one of the things I would say that, you know, for our extension folk, interpretive opportunities is one of the things I think we have done a better job of, and we have to continue to do, regardless of where funding comes from. It's important that, we haven't said it yet, but I'll say it, this best kept secret is just very irritating to me, because we should not be in a position where people still don't know who we are. One of the things that we did in 2023, one of the things that I think Extension struggles with is being vulnerable enough for people to come in and help us map out and talk about some of the things that we really don't see, because we are very internal driven in the way that we think and how we do our work. And I hope that doesn't offend anyone, but I'm just being candid based on the work that we have done in Texas. So we brought in 4 people that didn't know who we were, so to speak, and had a review that spent a whole week with us. And they met with our administrators, they met with our partners, they met with our youth, they met with us, our colleagues, and went to all 7 counties and gave us an unbelievable report on what that looked like. Some of those things were issues that we knew that we needed to address, and some of those things, more importantly, we built on those things that we were doing positively that we really didn't recognize, but it gave us a chance to really focus on that moving forward. From that, some of those things that we wanted to do was build on some of those quick wins, if you will, from that report. And so we also, of course, Extension, if we have one committee, we have to have a separate committee. So we had an internal committee amongst our team to really dive a little bit deeper in those specific things. So we broke that down as well. And one of those things that came out of, you know, we're always going to ask about more money. And a person told me recently that if you really step back and look at the work that we do, by receiving additional money, does it really change the number of contacts? Does it change the number of partners? Does it really change the focus or up and down based on what we're asking for? And I really thought about that. And it's not necessarily the money. It's oftentimes the things we're talking about now is are we delivering? Are we interpreting? Or are volunteers being recognized? Do we have people like this gentleman, Dwayne, sitting next to us, serving as an advocate for us? I have the same model when it comes to our Master Wellness, our volunteers, 4-H. We need individuals who are speaking on our behalf to be able to talk about the great work that we do. One of the last things we did, so there was 2 points. The third point related to what happened after that review. This past week, we actually had an Urban Partnership Synergy Symposium. That's a flashy name for saying we brought in partners who we wanted to bring in partners who did not know who we were. And we want to spend a day with them and have a conversation around not only what we do in Extension, but the work that they do. And even if we couldn't solve that issue, we wanted them to know that we were the organization that they could collaborate with and serve as a network for them in that community. And so we just wrapped it up a couple weeks ago. We had 170 plus people show up in 2 days for this event. But it really proved to us that if you're doing good work, people want to be involved in that, and it's something that they could take back and also engage with their local partners. And so I would think that being in a position that we are able to interpret the work that we do more frequently. We have a newsletter quarterly that highlights the 7 counties and the work that we're doing. We share it with our legislators. Each state does funding a little different from a state perspective, but for us, we meet biennial, and we want to make sure that we're in front of our legislators, not only, as I've been told, when we need something, but more specifically that they know up front, and that's part of that building that relationship, they know up front what we're doing, so that it's a very easy call that we can make in order for them to support whatever funds that we're requesting on a state level and really at any level for our extension programs. And one thing I would leave you with as well related to that, there was a gentleman who shared with me back in 2018 when I moved to Houston, and I've used this approach, and he said, and Mr. Dwayne here would probably understand this because he's probably the money man here locally, but they said never go to someone who has money trying to tell them how to spend their money. And I thought about that, and that's true. Keep in mind that if you're looking for someone to support the work that you're doing, make sure that you come to them with a plan that is set up to where you give them an idea, but the idea comes from the individual with the money, because no one wants to be told how to spend their money. So in Extension, we have a multitude of opportunities, programs that we can offer, and more importantly, don't always remember that there's opportunities to leverage funds that we are receiving through other areas that can complement whatever funds. And it doesn't always have to be funds. It could be a facility or something that we need to use to implement the work that we do. But just sort of keep that in mind. It goes back to building those relationships with them and also being able to interpret to them the work that we're doing that benefits what they're doing for us.
Thank you, David. You know, I had a longtime mentor who used to tell me, only poor people want to collaborate, Catherine. You know, that was Dr. James West. A lot of you from North Carolina in here know Dr. West. Okay, go ahead, Stuart.
I'm trying to let that all sink in. That was a lot of really good stuff. Yeah, it sounds like Wake County and Loudoun County have a very similar story. So, you know, interesting. Because that was, when I came into our team about 8 years ago, our director was also suffering from some PTSD about positions that had been cut and supervisors who were looking to kind of go, what is this thing that we have? Do we need it? And so that's been kind of the fire under me of how do we change that mentality from who is this pseudo department to where we are today. And I think, you know, it goes back to that relationship building, but to build on what David was saying as well, you know, approaching, and I spoke about this a little bit yesterday, but approaching this from a very strategic standpoint of how do we integrate with our county government's plan and tell them not, hey, we're doing this great programming over here, you should care about it, but you have these strategic initiatives, you're going in this direction, you want to do this, elected officials, in your term. Well, this is how we can help you do that. We can help you accomplish that. This is who we are. And I feel like that relationship piece of it is like being on a slow-moving treadmill, in that it is a never-ending process. You can't just educate the county government once about, hey, this is Extension and who we are. Okay, call us if you need us. It has to be, and you know, we always talk about how we're in the business of education, right? What does your department do that's unique? It's like, well, we educate the residents through research-based information, but my role as a department director is, a big part of it is I educate the county government on extension. And I think what happens is that when we don't have a champion like Dwayne here in Wake County, and my counterpart in Loudoun is Monica Spells. Well, I'm sure everyone knows Monica. But she is also a champion for extension because she came from South Carolina, where extension was part of the county go. It's like, oh yeah, well, let's go ask extension first. And then she came to Loudoun, and the previous deputy county manager, he couldn't care less about extension. You're a small department. We got billion-dollar departments doing stuff. Yeah, just don't get in my way. And so I think it's how do we change the perception of extension, and the perspective that I want to add on to what Dwayne and David have spoken about is that can't happen. It can only happen locally, right? So the relationship between Catherine and Dwayne, that's the only way that can happen, right? Catherine's, district director, they're not going to have that relationship with Dwayne, right? For us, many of you know Morris White, who came from here, from Durham. He is now my district director. I can't expect him to build that kind of relationship with my Monica Spells, right? So it's a full-time job for me to do this. And I think, for the administrators in the room, and we had a lot of these conversations yesterday, at least in Virginia, but I've heard from other areas, other states, in the last couple of days, that they experience the same thing. I really do think we're at this moment in time where we need to shift the way we think about extension. We need to stop hiring extension agents to be leaders, and we need to start hiring people with a master's in public administration, right? Who understand how county governments work, how public administration works. But when we ask or tell the 4-H agent who is overworked as it is, oh, by the way, you're supposed to do this other full-time job building this relationship with Dwayne, it's not going to happen, right? And so as we start looking at urban areas and really high population areas, we need to start thinking about hiring differently, and those key partnerships that it's a full-time job, and we can't just tack it on to the end of, someone else, some other extension agents who, by the way, probably has a master's degree in horticulture. I have a master's degree in food safety. Like, what does that have to do with anything, right? But I think that's a big piece of it. We have all these examples of when it works incredibly well, and the huge return on investment for those communities. And it happens when we put the right people in place and don't just tell them, hey, this is another thing that you should spend a little bit of time once a week thinking about. It doesn't work like that, and it's never going to work like that.
Yeah, I have always thought it was crazy that we hire horticulturalists to oversee like 100+ person volunteer groups, but that's the system, and I think it's helpful, but you do end up doing a lot of things you were not trained for. So I'm going to take a slightly different tact with this question, and part of what we've been really working on, and I've been working on since I started, and I know a lot of us think about, is having volunteer bases that reflect our community, especially within the Master Gardener program. It historically across the country, this is not a North Carolina problem, this is not a Southeast problem, this is a nationwide problem, that our volunteer bases don't necessarily reflect the communities that they serve. We know this to be true. We know it to be true from where I'm coming from within the larger environmental movement broadly, right? That the people who are running environmental nonprofits, who are doing this sort of ecological work, don't reflect necessarily the communities that they serve, and they're not incorporating those voices as much as they could. And part of it goes back to this problem you're identifying, right? Is that you have a lot of folks who are trained in one field, and then they're asked to solve environmental, ecological problems, but these are deeply social issues as well, right? And that's, shocker to no one, I just don't think you have the staffing there, right, to be able to do that. And so part of what we've really been working on is that sort of long partnership building, and it's probably why my first answer to the first question was patience, of saying how do we come back again and again and again, and how do we ask people to take a chance on us, right? It is hard to walk into a room where you don't look like anyone, or your background is not the same as anyone, or maybe there's just a few of you. And we're asking people to take a chance. And part of that is just being kind of dogged in that pursuit of saying, what do you need to feel comfortable? What are your interests? Where do you want this program to go? It's not about asking anyone to fit into our program, but saying, okay, we clearly have a program that doesn't reflect our community. What do we need to change? And where do we need to go to reflect our community? And I think part of that is, as we grow, extension comes from this research-based perspective, and that's our strength and that's our power, but there are many ways of knowing things. And there are many ways of experiencing things, and there are many backgrounds and histories. And I think occupying our space in the conversation as a research-based perspective, but being excited to have conversation with anyone coming from any perspective and say, like, cool, I have research-based answers. You have, like, what your grandma told you. You have some crazy stuff you've been trying in your backyard. Like, let's all talk about it, right? And we can have that conversation and have it be fun. And, you know, we... even the term master gardeners, we might be master gardeners, but like we're here to like talk gardening with you. And sometimes it's just fun to talk about the crazy things we're trying, whether it's research-based or not, right? And that's how you kind of build community. But for us, it's been a long slog. I think we're getting closer, but it's something that we have to be persistent. You know, some of these words we've heard over and over: persistent, intentional. It's a slow treadmill, right? It's just got to keep going, because unless we keep our eye on that as a central goal, not as just one more thing on the list of goals we're working on, it's not going to happen.
Okay, everyone. I've been watching around the room since I couldn't see all these beautiful people while they were talking. And you all have been nodding heads, shaking, all of that. And now is your chance to ask some questions. So what I'm going to ask you to do, because I failed to mention that we are taping this session this morning for the National Urban Extension Professional Development webinar series. And so Mr. Ben Farmer and a very sleepy team of cooperative extension staff from Wake County, woo, are back there learning and taping this session. So I will ask you to come forward, but I know you've been, what resonate, you know, it doesn't have to be a question. It could be what resonated with you. What questions do you have for any of these folks? Just come forward and let us hear what's on your mind this morning. Come on up. Yep, they might need to come up here. That would be great. Donna's going to be our Vanna.
Okay, friends, who has a question? I'll ask one. So this is always kind of one of my types of favorite questions. I would love to know about maybe a partnership fail. So maybe something that did not work, and maybe either how you recovered from it or how you learned from it.
I can
The deep,
start.
dark stories, sorry.
Yeah, we're being and asked by my boss. But so I will say there's like just a classic partnership fail, which we've probably like stumbled into enough more times than I can count, which is putting in a garden without an explicit written agreement on who will care for it and how it will work. And that sounds really basic, but you know, that was one of the things that was mentioned earlier is having it written down who does what, right? And it's especially true with volunteers, but it happens with us too, where we get excited about a project and we're just like spitballing and like throwing out ideas, and people are volunteering for things and we're excited and it's happening, and like 3 months later, who was supposed to do what? And like, I thought you were gonna water, you don't have water? Okay, you know, and so I think having those sort of written explicit agreements, it's not the fun part of it. It's not, no one feels like especially warm and fuzzy doing it, but sitting down and taking that time to map out actually explicitly who does what, and what does the transition plan look like if we build something with a team. I don't know that I'm necessarily building more resources for us to control. Like, I have enough and I don't need more control. How do we turn these things over to the community? But that takes mapping that out in advance and being very explicit about it.
My short answer is I have a lot of them, but and you'll understand why. Is any a partnership or attempt of a partnership that is a poor return on investment of time. And it happens a lot with the extension. And that's not to say, we shouldn't try things, but I think we do things that are not strategic because we want to be everything to everyone because we're the best kept secret and we better tell people who we are and what we do. And that is a trap that I think a lot of maybe newer agents fall into in their career, is that they're just excited that someone wants to do something with them. And so they, oh yes, of course we can do it. And we don't train people the art of saying no and return on investment of time. And so we say yes to partnerships that suck up a whole summer, and then we turn around and we're like, what do we get out of that? Was that, wow, okay. So I think, I don't have a specific example that I want to share, but I think anything like that, and it happens a lot, I think that's a fail.
Okay, other questions? Let's see. Okay, I see one over here. We're walking. Excuse me.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Dennis Donaldson, 4-H STEM Extension Specialist at Virginia State University. And if any of y'all can highlight what would be one of your proudest achievements in your position, I would like to kind of hear a story about that.
I guess I will share that. I appreciated the comments that were made yesterday by some of the administrators that welcomed us. And one of the things that was shared was how far urban extension has come in the last few years. And I was introduced in 2018 when I transitioned, and I remember sitting, I can't remember where, we were maybe in Tennessee, but I had no idea what that looked like or exactly where we were headed, transitioning into a role where we had so many opportunities and such a huge population to work with. And just over time, for me, being a part of NUEL, being part of these discussions has helped me better understand moving forward what that looks like and the impact that we have throughout our communities. And being able to help our senior administrative team understand more about what urban is. It was always the conversation around it was separate. We had to always try to figure out how to explain what made it look different. And it took our team, which if I don't, I'll hear about it later maybe. Two of our county directors are here, so could you just raise your hand, Maggie and Amy? They're in Austin and Rosenberg, which is two of our largest cities in the state. And we always talk often about, we don't want what we do to be separate from what our agency goals are. We want our senior administrative team to understand that what we do, how we, more importantly, deliver programs. I think that's one of the distinct differences between urban and rural or semi-urban counties, is how we deliver because of the populations and the volunteers that we have. And so we have now can have a conversation with our senior team based on our partnership symposium, based on our urban programming workshops where we bring in our urban agents and discuss and talk about what that looks like. It's now a conversation around what urban does for our agency. And that has been a huge win for us as we talked about that, because not only are we replicating the things that we're doing within our 7 counties within that unit, but now we're replicating that work across the state of Texas. And for me, that's a huge win to know that our administrators now see the impact, the benefit, the work that this team puts on in order for it to be beneficial to every employee across the agency. So that's a huge win for me and our team as we look at moving forward what urban extension looks like in the state of Texas.
My proudest moment, I would say, working with Extension, it's been years. It was years ago. It was actually not in an urban county, but the extension director at the time had been talking for a while about getting our farmers market to accept EBT. This is way back, and I partnered with them to help bring that to the county, and I learned about the bureaucracy of the farmer's market. Wow. I had no idea. People think there's bureaucracy in county government. Farmers markets are serious. But it was great education for me. And at the same time, you know, being the child of a single mother who was on food stamps and knowing the power that public assistance could have on someone's life, being able to bring that to our farmers market and open that up to a whole population of people was powerful for me personally. Yeah.
I think for me in my role, you know, just focused on Loudoun, so whenever I hear in front of me, but often behind my back, that I have the best county, best team in Virginia, we have the best office to work in. You know, when I can hear stuff like that, that's some of my proudest things, because I'm trying to build that sort of team and mentality in Loudoun. And I think, you know, when we as a department, you know, for sure convincing the Board of Supervisors to give us positions, whenever I walk in the morning and I see those people who are sitting at those desks that didn't before, you know, those are really proud moments, because I know that they are going to go and impact people in our community that they wouldn't have had we not done this work. And then anytime Morris tells me, hey, Stuart, just slow down a little bit, just let me catch up here because you're getting me in trouble, that's a proud moment for me.
Yeah, I think mine is similar in a way, in that it sounds terrible, but I've had a couple of master gardeners transfer in from other parts of the state into our program and go through our training. And every once in a while, one of them will kind of pull me aside and be like, this is a really good program. And you're like, oh, cool. But it's giving people the space to do what they want to do and to pursue their interests and come up with crazy new ideas, and having the opportunity to let people really invest in the program and making space for that. It's really exciting.
Okay, I see a question up there, and I'll say this time everyone may not have, we only have about 4 or 5 more minutes, so we may not all have a chance to answer, but we'll take one more question, and we'll let the 1 or 2 of you who have a burning answer share, just because I want to keep us on track for our first sessions.
Yeah, my question is, what advice, like practical advice, do you have for county employees, county extension employees, when they're going in to get the support of the county via county commissioners, county managers? How should we approach, like, tangible advice would be helpful, because it's definitely not our, you know, not in our zone. So we need some help.
So, and I think Stuart touched on it. I think I touched on it. So the first thing is, I know for us, our strategic plan is our North Star. And so any way that you can tie the value you can bring and relate it back to the strategic plan is huge. The other thing is, you know, outcomes are more important than outputs. And a lot of times, you know, whether it's how many classes are held or how many participants you had or whatever, but what impact did you have on the people who participated? You know, even if it's as simple as kind of pre and post surveys, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, but I know for us, outcomes are more important than outputs. And you know, our county manager believes that outcomes follow investments. That's one of his favorite sayings is outcomes follow investments. And so he's willing to invest, but you gotta be able to show what is it that I'm getting.
A couple quick comments related to that. Performance-based budgets, KPIs, that's what they're looking for. And just to reiterate that, I say often also, don't forget the human element of what we do. We often, We spend a lot of time focused on that, which is important. But you've got to take the time to meet with those commissioners, even if it's not the commissioners or the county manager or whatever title is being used, county administrator in your respective counties. You have to find ways to stay engaged with them year-round. They don't want to see us just at budget time requesting whatever that might be. It has to be where, for example, I rarely see our commissioners or our county judge, but I have their numbers. It may be a quick 30-minute Zoom call. It might be an opportunity where not something that we're not actually hosting, but maybe something that they're hosting that we are there and they see us and they know who we are. That is one of the biggest mistakes that we have made personally over time, is making sure that you're in positions where they see us and also interpreting to them. And I'm not talking 4 or 5, I'm not talking about a documentary, just ways, infographics, giving them quick reports, updates on the work that we're doing. It makes it so much easier when it is time for us to go before the court and request whatever that may look like, and or just defend what you currently have. It's not always asking for more, it's just sustaining what you currently have. But again, make sure that you take the time to meet, and if it's not them, there's a lot of people who work for them who's just as important as they are when it comes to making sure that they know who we are across our departments.
And real quick, just practically, I spoke about this yesterday, but make sure the other department directors know what Extension can offer. Because if you have the support of the Director of Parks and Rec, you know, those really heavy hitter departments, they're the ones who are in front of the board. You know, we say we don't go in front of the board or in front of the county administrator very often. They do. They have the big problems, the big fires that get put out every day. And so if you build those relationships where the Director of Parks and Rec, you know, health department, whoever it might be, they're in the meetings. They're the ones who can say, hey, man, have you asked Extension? Why haven't you asked Extension? Extension are important. You know, that's a practical piece of advice that is important.
Thank you. Ashley, any closing? No. Okay. All right. You all give it up for our amazing panelists. If I had a pen up here, I would have been trying to write down some of the great little nuggets of information. That's a learning for me. Bring a pen next time. But, you know, key takeaway is everybody needs a Dwayne. So, and lots of good advice about how you can get to that point. And I'll say one of my proudest moments in Extension was when we actually in Wake County, lifted Extension up to be our own department again, which we had not been in about 10 or 15 years. And of course, I've been in that county for 34 years. So I've seen a lot of transition, but being invited to represent Extension and the senior leadership of the county was probably, I knew then, like, okay, you know, we're at the table again. People recognize what we have to contribute, and that gives us a chance not to build a dynasty. Nobody's trying to build a dynasty. We're trying to serve people. We're trying to meet the needs of the people, and I think that's the other thing I'll add. If you stay focused on the outcomes, even when you're having a difficult or a challenging partnership with somebody, you know, that's what we're really focused on, is what we're trying to accomplish for people. That, to me, has also been such a critical factor. So I am so proud to be up here with all these folks and appreciate the wisdom they shared this morning. Donna is going to come up and do just a few minutes, really just a couple minutes, to let us know about the workshops this afternoon.